The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Fantasy. The work up new customers play just $5. Harmless bonus funds. Use promo code SGPN. And welcome, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It's currently Thursday night, October 23rd, around 10 p.m. Eastern. I'm Rosso Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Time to get into the breakdown of the quarterfinals taking place in Basel and in Vienna on Friday. So before we get into any of those matches, a brief reminder, you can support the show by subscribing on YouTube. A reminder, podcast also available audio only on Spotify or Apple. So you can actually listen to the podcast a couple of ways, but no matter how you do, please help the show grow by subscribing to YouTube and leave a rating and a review on Spotify or Apple. Plus, a reminder, you can check out the merch store on the SGPN website. We have a lot of great tennis merch. We have sweatshirts, we have t-shirts, we have mugs, different colors, different options. Check it out. I think you'll like the selection that we have. Plus, a reminder, we have another sport that started up this past week as professional men's basketball started back up with the NBA. So make sure you check out the NBA Gambling Podcast for daily picks. And a reminder, I am also on that show. But check out the NBA Gambling Podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, you know the drill. But if you want some basketball thoughts for the entire season, check it out as we record an episode Monday through Friday every single week. So moving on to the actual recap of what happened for the last episode. Overall, a great episode for us. Starting off with the lock and dog picks, we swept. Now for the lock, we ended up taking a juicy play, which got there coincidentally in a match where the player lost. We had the team total over for Khachanov at 12.5 at minus 150. Greek Sport never makes it easy on himself, win or lose, and he keeps the set drop streak alive. Khachanov, though, ended up losing the first set, won the second set, lost the third, but he went over the team total. All that matters, we thought it'd be a close matchup. That could go either way. It was Khachanov lost, but he went over the number, so nice win there for the lock. For the dog, never in doubt, really dumb price by the sports books. We had Opelka straight sets against Baez at plus 135. An absurd number. I believe it closed at around plus 105, but it's the fastest hard courts the entire season. Baez is 5'7", and Opelka, we know, can serve bombs. Baez, shockingly, had zero breakpoint chances. It was very straightforward. Opelka didn't even go to a breaker, actually. He just dominated the match. So nice and easy win there at plus 135. Hopefully you tailed that as well. So once again, overall great episode for the lock and dog. We'll try to get another sweep here for the quarterfinals. Now moving on to the actual recap of the matchups on Thursday. Overall, really not really any drama. You had two matches out of the entire slate that ended up going to a third set. For starters, you had a very close match between Felix and Cilic, as Felix did win 7-6, 7-6. So competitive matchup, no breaks in the entire match, but Felix got the job done handily in the breaker both times. You saw Shapo beat Royer in straight sets with a breaker in the first set. Munard beat Shelton. We had the right idea that Shelton was compromised, wasn't worth being a favorite wasn't worthy of being a favorite in his quarter. He barely beat Majcik. He should have lost. Majcik had a volley at the net on match point. He choked it, and then Shelton got buried by Munard in the next match. Shelton's just not ready, simply put. Came back from a shoulder injury. He's still priced like he's fully healthy. He's not, and Munard keeps the solid hard court season going as he was able to beat him in straight sets. Opelka beat Dzanchulp in 3, so Ruud beat Wawrinka in a competitive straight set match. So Wawrinka played pretty well, hurt his back in the second set. He was actually up a break at the time, gave it back, then lost in a second set breaker. And Fritz lost to Humbert. Now, Fritz has been quite bad against lefties recently. I believe he's 3-7 against lefties in his last 10. So keep that in mind. Fritz not exactly great against lefties. Also, we had an injury to talk about. Mensik, after scraping by a complete unknown in his first match, ended up getting injured, and he ended up retiring. So Fonseca got a walkover into the, once again, quarterfinals. So we had only one match that went to 3 sets, and we had one match that didn't happen because Mensik ended up dropping out of the event. Hopefully he ends up making a full recovery. Anyway, for Vienna, kind of the same story. You had Moutet, who got revenge against Medvedev. We know Medvedev won a title against Moutet in the final last Saturday. Moutet got revenge, won in straight sets. Bublik buried Cerundolo in straight sets, 6-4, 6-2. Zverev looked good against Arnaldi, won 6-4, 6-4. Sinner ended up winning in straight sets against Kaboli. Props to Gaboli, though, actually went to a tiebreak, so he didn't get his ass kicked, but he still lost in straight sets, and Musetti beat Echeverry in straight sets. The only drama-filled match of the day was definitely Berrettini taking on Norrie. Berrettini's had some durability issues over the years, and we know Norrie can be frustrating to play because of the, I'd say, consistent ground strokes, not really any firepower, but the willingness to just rally the ball until really just forever. And Berrettini, to his credit, physically held up, and Berrettini won a match that took 3 hours and 16 minutes. So Berrettini, nice win. I think he was expected to win by most people. But the fact is, physically, with all the injuries he's had, props to him for surviving a 3+ hour ordeal en route to a win. Will he be able to recover physically? Taking on De Minaur the day after? I don't know. We'll see. But a nice win for Berrettini with all the injuries he's had. Norrie gave it a run, but you ended up seeing Berrettini get the job done there in 3 sets. So basically, once again, not too much drama going on Thursday. You had a couple of close matches, but it was mostly straightforward. Recapping, though, where we're at for the quarters, because we do have to recap how we're doing for the actual quarter picks. Now, reminder, we had no quarters available for Vienna, so we can't really go through those. For the first quarter, though, in Basel, so far we are looking poor because the first quarter didn't work out. We had Leheshka at 450. He ended up losing immediately to Zanschulp, and we had Fritz at -110, who lost to Humbert. Did not work out there for the first quarter. Good news, though, for the second quarter. We have an automatic winner. We have Ruud at 175, and we have Fekina at 375. So guaranteed winner in the second quarter. You can bet your units accordingly if you want to try to get an even profit. But either way, you do get a guaranteed winner for the second quarter. Third quarter, not good. Pericard ended up losing in the first round to Fonseca. Still love the price at +450. And Rinderknech dropped out of the event. So we got a refund on Rinderknech, which was voided. And for the fourth quarter, we ended up losing. Went for some swings. Didn't work out. And we had Cilic at 5-1. Lost in 2 breakers. You saw Majcik, who choked away 2 match points against Shelton. He might have lost to Munar anyway, but 14-1, 2 match points, I thought had some value to it. Didn't work out. And Bertola, complete unknown at 25-1, who ended up losing in the first round to Munar. So once again, not great for the actual quarters in Basel. Went for some swings. It is what it is, and we'll try to do better the next time. For the outrights, though, not good either. We lost all the outrights. We have Fritz at 340. He ended up losing. Pericard 22-1 and Cilic at 40-1. Went for some big servers, took some swings. Didn't really go that aggressively in terms of units. So hopefully you ended up betting responsibly with the plays, but either way, it didn't work out for the event. For Vienna, we really didn't do much. Once again, Sinner was a massive minus favorite. Did mention that if you wanted to bet Sinner, betting him to win without dropping a set. That is still alive and well. Didn't really see the price on that, but I didn't want to take the -188, and Medvedev lost at 850. So really not a great episode for the futures, but for the actual lock and dog picks, ended up sweeping. And if you do have Sinner to win without dropping a set, you are still in good shape. Anyway, before we get into any of the actual preview of the matches on Friday, a reminder that we are brought to you by our sponsor, MyBookie.ag. So you can bet on football and everything else. They have tennis as well. They have prop builder second to none. For model simple, bet anything, anywhere, anytime. Use crypto for funding your account and for getting payouts. So check that out. And a reminder, when you sign up at MyBookie.ag, use the code SGPN for 100% bet back bonus of $100 from the customers. Or the G promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Novig, which is America's number one prediction market for sports, and you're getting some great prices. If you do end up using Novig, they're available in 30 plus states. Download the Novig app, and when you do so, you'll get $50 and spend just $5 if you use our promo code SGPN. So use Novig. Once again, promo code SGPN. Spend $5 and $50 in bonus funds. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Scam Podcast. Finished going through the recap of what happened on Thursday and in the last episode. Now, moving on into the preview of the matches in the quarters for Basel and for Vienna. So I'm going to go with Basel first, actually, for this one. So starting off with the first match on the card, it should be a fun one, actually. You have Felix, who is a multiple-time champion at the event, as he takes on Munar. Now, Munar's been good so far in the event. He's been good this season. Now, for the actual pricing, Felix is a massive favorite, -300 off a title last week and being a multiple-time champion here in Basel. Munar is +230. For the spread, -3.5 for Felix, +3.5 for Munar. The over-under is at 22.5. Faced off 3 times in their careers. Every meeting was on clay. Munar is 2-1. Both wins were in 2018. Do I care? No. The only win Felix had was on clay in Rio in 2019. First meeting in basically 6 years, and it's on hard court. So the head-to-head means nothing, but I'll throw it out there. Now, Munar's been good. Mentioned before, he ended up beating Shelton in straight sets, beat Bertola in straight sets. Pretty good run in Shanghai as well. Ended up beating Fucsovics, ended up beating Kaboli, beat Nishioka, and then a loss to Djokovic in 3. So nice showing there. Felix, we know, has been playing well. Beat Cilic, beat Diallo, ended up beating Leheshka, Kalignan, Spaziri, and DeZumer. So he ended up winning a title, and then he went right into Basel, and he has not dropped the set. So both guys are pretty good. Felix, we know, has the better serve, which translates well to the fast-paced courts here in Basel. However, do I think Munar can actually make this interesting? I'm going to say yes. I think Felix should win, but I do think the over is intriguing. Munar, maybe in the past, was a pushover on hard court. This year, not so much. He's actually been pretty good. He has some good wins, and I do think his game has definitely progressed, and I'll give him props for being more aggressive on the hard courts. And I do think with Munar, who even on grass won a set against Alcaraz, like he's been playing very well so far this season. Now, Felix should win. The problem is the returning of serve is still not great. I mean, even against Cilic, he had 1 break point in the entire match, 0 breaks. Diallo, he ended up breaking a couple of times. Diallo, though, has been kind of up and down for the entire season. Leheshka, he ended up not having a break until the 3rd set. Kalignani won. DeZumer in the first match of Brussels, though, did end up struggling to actually break. He went 1 for 14 in break points. I think Munar can actually keep this close. I'm not saying he's going to win, but I think Munar is definitely proven he's more dangerous on a hard court than you might think. And I do think Felix, we know, can still be, I'd say, untrustworthy at times. It wouldn't shock me if a breaker happened in this match, especially with the fast-paced courts here. Munar, though, is hitting the ball cleanly. I think Felix can try to overpower Munar, but Munar might be able to extract some errors with his consistent baseline play. Give me the over in this one. I think a 7-6, 6-4 outcome seems kind of realistic to me, and I do think you might end up getting a very close matchup. So I'll go with the over in this one at around 22.5. For the team total, you can get Felix team total over 12.5 at -143. I like that. I think Felix will end up winning with probably a 7 in one of the sets. So I'll go Felix team total over 12.5 at -143 for that one. Moving on to the next match, we're looking at the matchup between Fonseca and Shapo. A fun but unexpected matchup in the quarters. Now, for the path, Shapo's been playing well at the event. Weird match against Giron. He ended up winning the first set in a breaker. Sorry, he lost the first set in a breaker. Giron punted the second set 6-0, and then the third set went to a breaker, and Shapo ended up winning. Then he ended up facing off against Royer, who's been pretty good. Lately, a reminder, he was a finalist a couple of weeks ago on hard court, and he beat Royer in straight sets, played well, ended up winning 76% of the first serve points and 59% of the second serve points. So overall, a solid job serving, got the job done there in straight sets. For Fonseca, he ended up beating defending champion in Perricard, who we know has not been very good so far this season, but still, nice win breaking the unbreakable on the courts. But either way, fun matchup, and Fonseca won, and then Mensik ended up getting injured and did not show up for the match. So Fonseca's played 1 match in the event after having a pretty underwhelming season. I think Fonseca, he won a title on clay. He had an okay run in Wimbledon. Not really that great. But I think people expected more of a leap, so to speak. Maybe it's unfair to him, but he also beat Rublev in the Australian Open in the past. So Fonseca's had expectations, and it felt like people were hoping for more consistency, which he hasn't shown. Now, consistency and Shapo do not go hand-to-hand either. But I do think Fonseca being favored is a pretty weird line to me. Fonseca's -125, Shapo's +100. For the spread, minus half a game for Fonseca, plus half a game for Shapo. The over-under's at 23.5. So, look, I understand Fonseca has a lot of upside as being a wonder kid, so to speak. Shapo's been playing up and down for the last couple of years, but this year's been better than last year. He was okay in Stockholm, lost to Ruud, who won the tournament, so no shame in that. But either way, he's been good here in Basel. I don't mind the over in this one. I think it's going to be a close matchup. For the value, though, I got to go Shapo. Fonseca winning 1 match against a serve bot is not going to suddenly make me think that he's worthy of being favored against a guy who's also good on hard court in Shapo. Fonseca might win, but I think it's going to be close either way. And Fonseca this year has just been so inconsistent. I don't think he's worthy of being in the favorite role when he basically got handed a free spot in the quarter since Mensik didn't show up. So based on the value, I think Shapo should be favored. You could argue minus 110 apiece. That wouldn't really surprise me either. But if Shapo's minus 120, that feels right to me. I think based on the experience and based on the form, I think he looks better than Fonseca. Fonseca played one match. I can't really draw many conclusions from that. So based on the actual, in my opinion, resumes and based on the form, I think Shapo is a bit disrespected here. And I feel like sportsbooks are once again overpricing or just overrating Fonseca. He might win and prove me wrong, but for the actual value, I just don't see it. So give me Shapo at even money for this one. Moving on to the next matchup, you have Humbert against Opelka. Massive favorite, Humbert's minus 240. Opelka's around plus 190. For the spread, you have minus 2.5 for Humbert, plus 2.5 for Opelka. The over-under is at 24.5. Now, we know Humbert has been very good in indoor hard courts his entire career, has multiple ATP titles on indoor hard courts. Now, for the event so far, he's been great. He destroyed Fritz, and he ended up beating Korda handily, too. So he had a good run in Stockholm, lost to Ruud in the final, came back here, and he looks very good. For Opelka, he's played well, beat Baez, which is basically a bye on these courts, and beat Zandschulp in 3. Fun match, didn't get broken, pretty standard performance by Opelka. And in that match, Opelka ended up having 29 aces and ended up winning 83% of his first serve points. So we know Humbert's a great returner, and that's really the question here. Because we know that Humbert's serve is not great, but the lefty slice serve out wide should frustrate Opelka, who we know is not exactly the most agile based on his size covering the court. Humbert might be just spamming outside kickers just to sweep Opelka off the court, to open up so much room, which can result in a bunch of potential serve plus ones for free points there for Humbert. But I think you're looking at a matchup which is pretty simple to break down. Do you think Humbert actually breaks Opelka? Because I'm not sure Opelka is going to break Humbert anyway, but Opelka, we know, as a server is incredible, and on these courts in Basel, it is very, very tough to break anybody. We've seen a bunch of breakers because of it. And Opelka is one of the toughest guys to break. So based on the matchup, I think that Humbert is going to win. I think he's better than Opelka. However, do I think that Opelka can do enough to cover the 2.5? That's really the question. Humbert for the team totals at like 13.5, which is just not that interesting to me. I mean, breaker's minus 240 in the match. So it's pretty tough to find any value, to be honest. I think if you want to argue Opelka plus 2.5, and argue maybe if he just holds out, you could win. But I don't really feel great about this match in general. I think Humbert ends up winning. Does he get a break? Maybe, if you want to go for the Humbert team total of 13.5. And if he ends up winning in 3 or a very competitive straight sets where it ends up going to a 7-6, 7-6, you have a couple ways to get there. I don't mind the Humbert team total over. If it goes to 3 sets, you basically automatically win. That's probably my angle I'd go with. Do I feel great about it? No. Because I think he could break Opelka. But for value, Humbert team total probably at 13.5. I don't see much value, though, in the non-prop section of this match. Moving on to the final matchup, you have Ruud against Fekina. A reminder, we do have both guys to win their quarter, so you are already priced in if you ended up betting both guys. For the value, or for the pricing, you have Ruud at minus 240. You have Fekina at plus 185. For the spread, you have minus 3.5 for Ruud, plus 3.5 for Fekina. The over-under is at 22.5. Now, head-to-head has been close. Ruud is up 3-2, I believe, in the head-to-head. I will point out that the last hard-court meeting was last year in Miami. Ruud won in straight sets. 2023, though, Fekina did end up winning in Toronto in 3 sets. So, once again, Ruud has gotten the better of Fekina in the last 2 meetings. Faced off in the French Open last year, went to 5 sets. It's Ruud's best surface. It's both guys' best surface. So you can argue that's a decent showing of how close these guys might actually be. Now, for the path, Ruud has been coasting, beat Hallis and beat Wawrinka. Wawrinka, though, was not easy. He was down a break in the second set, and he had to win the breaker in the second set of both matches. As for Fekina, ended up beating Sonego in straight sets and beat Brooksby in a war. Now, classic Fekina, he choked away 4 match points, served for the match, got broken, and then he immediately broke back and served it out to win. So he choked away 4 match points and won anyway. So a nice job by him to keep his nerve. but damn, Fokina never makes it easy, which is a pretty standard story involving his career. Now, for the actual match itself, we know Ruud's been great, won a title in Stockholm, now he's been coasting, but beating Hallis, who's been really bad lately, and beating Wawrinka, who we know is 41 years old. I mean, it is what it is. Europe was back midway through the second set. It's a very easy path for Ruud. Fokina, we'll see how healthy he is after beating Brooksby. But he had a day off, which should help. That Brooksby match was yesterday. So there is some time to recover from the massive marathon that took about 3 hours. So I think Fokina is actually alive to win this. I'm not saying he's going to, but I do think it's going to be a close matchup. Historically speaking, once again, these players do give each other problems, and I do think that Ruud can win while it does end up going 3. That wouldn't shock me. But looking at the history once again, they have faced off 5 times, and 4 of the 5 meetings have not ended in straight sets. So I don't actually mind the over in this one at around 22.5. Don't mind the games for Fokina at plus 3.5. If you want to go for the over 2.5 sets, you can find that at around plus 140. I like it. I see a relatively close match. I think Ruud ends up winning, but I think Fokina can do some damage and to win at least one set. Give me the over in this one. Moving on to Vienna. So for the actual matches, we are a bit short for one line. But for the matches that we actually have, we have de Minaur taking on Berrettini. For this one, de Minaur is a minus 300 favorite. Berrettini is around plus 235. For the spread, you have minus 3.5 for de Minaur, plus 3.5 for Berrettini. The over-under for games at 22.5. Now, they faced off a couple of times in the head-to-head, and Berrettini's been good against de Minaur. Faced off this year in Miami, Berrettini won in straight sets. Faced on Wimbledon 2023, Berrettini won that one as well. Berrettini's actually won 3 of the last 4 meetings. Now, some of them are dated, and we know Berrettini's injury history is very, very long. The problem is he's off a 3+ hour marathon against a similar but worse player in Norrie. And now he has de Minaur, who's probably the best pusher on tour, which is what Norrie does. So Norrie gave Berrettini fits, and now he has a better version of the same type of guy the day after a 3+ hour marathon. Now, de Minaur has been the opposite. He's been coasting. Beat Rodionov and beat Misalic. He hasn't played anybody worth a damn in the entire tournament. Rodionov, not really that great. He's more of a challenger guy. And Misalic is definitely a clay specialist. So de Minaur has been coasting, but against weak competition, a step up, especially with Berrettini's serve and forehand on these courts. Now, the problem, once again, the whole wrench in the, I'd say the whole wrinkle of things is just Berrettini's lack of rest in between matches. If it was with a day off, I would take Berrettini. I think 3.5 is too many games for a guy who can easily serve well, and de Minaur might have to break twice. If he does not serve first in either set, he would need to break twice in order to actually cover the 3.5, which is very tough to do against Berrettini. The problem is the potential. It's just the issues you run into when it comes to lack of rest with a guy who has a bunch of injury history. If Berrettini ends up making a first set competitive and then gets steamrolled because he runs out of gas, would you be shocked? The answer would be no. You just wouldn't be surprised if that happened. So I think de Minaur wins. I wanted to go for Berrettini, but it's really not a great scheduling spot for a guy with injury history. So I'll go with the over instead. 22.5 games, maybe the first set over. That way you get Berrettini, who might still be fresh, and you can hope that he ends up holding a decent amount to force a competitive set. Breaker in the match is minus 106. I don't hate that, but Berrettini I would have taken, but the schedule alone with his injury history and a 3 hour and 16-minute match is not what you want to see before you face de Minaur. So I'll go de Minaur, but no real value. Give me the tiebreak in the match. Maybe tiebreak first set if you want to get greedy. Tiebreak in the first set is available at around, what is it at? Plus 245. So there you go. Moving on to the next match in Vienna. You have Griekspoor taking on Zverev. Now, historically, these guys kill each other. Zverev usually wins, but the matches tend to be close. Now, Zverev's minus 250. Griekspoor's plus 195. For the spread, minus 2.5 for Zverev, plus 2.5 for Griekspoor. The over-under is at 23.5. Now, head-to-head history, said before, the recent meetings have been very, very close. Zverev, though, has been very good record-wise. Zverev, in his career, has lost to Griekspoor twice. They have faced off a couple of times this season. Griekspoor won Indian Wells in a match Zverev probably should have won. Faced off in Munich later on the same season. Zverev won in 3, and in the French Open, Griekspoor got injured and quit in the second set, so that one you really can't use. Now, for the actual path, Griekspoor has been good. Beat Nakashima with 2 tiebreaks, beat Kashanov in 3. Zverev has been looking up and down, beat Fernley in a final set breaker. Fernley's been a mess, so really not a great showing there. Beat Arnaldi, looked better. Arnaldi, though, has not been that great this season either. So the real question is for Griekspoor, can he serve well enough to neutralize the return game as Zverev, or is Griekspoor going to eventually hit too many errors and punt the match away? I think Zverev wins. I mean, I think Zverev's the better player. Griekspoor, ended up beating him in Indian Wells earlier this year, but Zverev really handed it to him. So just the head-to-head dominance from Zverev does suggest he should win. Griekspoor won the last 2 sets in Indian Wells in tiebreaks, and if you want to look at the actual match in itself, Zverev ended up in the second set, pulling it up. Zverev served for the match at 6-5, and he choked. So Zverev, even the one match Griekspoor ended up winning against him this season, he probably should have lost. So factor that in if you want to, but I think Zverev wins. Am I betting this? Probably not. I'm not interested in either guy. Zverev's been a head case for a while. He's also pretty taxed. Played in a bunch of events, whether involved the 1,000 titles, whether involved or the 1,000 events, or even the King 6 Slam. Now he's back here. It's a lot of tennis, but I do think Griekspoor is a guy who can be very, very vulnerable with unforced errors, and he's a pretty bad returner. I think Zverev wins. I don't mind the straight set angle, actually, if you want to go for a plus money option. Excuse me, that's plus 112. I don't hate it. Do I like the value on it? Not really. It's not a matchup I'm interested in, but I'll go for Zverev in the straight sets for value. But no chance I bet it. I'll just go for the plus money shot if I had to pick something. Moving on to the next matchup. You have Sinner taking on Bublik. Now, for this one, you're looking at a massive line. You'd assume after Bublik ended up destroying Tabilo and Cerundolo, maybe Bublik would be like 7-1 if you had to price it yourself. And or maybe even shorter than that. Maybe thought he'd be like 4-1. No, it's 7-1. Sinner's minus 1,100. For this one. For the spread, minus 4.5 for Sinner, plus 4.5 for Bublik. The over-under is at 20.5 games. And a reminder that Bublik did beat Sinner on grass earlier this year en route to a title in Halle. So a nice job by Bublik beating the unbeatable, basically. However, faced off in the U.S. Open after that, and Sinner just completely murdered the guy. 6-1, 6-1, 6-1. Bublik won 1 game in each set. So Sinner avenged the loss and then some. Now, Bublik, we know, is a very good server, and the courts in Vienna are still quick. They're not nearly as fast as Basel, but you could argue that a good serve can go a long way. And when you're looking at the actual tournament so far, Bublik has served very well in the event. Bublik has not even, he's not been broken. He saved every break point, so neither guy's been broken up to this point. Now, Sinner beat Kaboli and beat Altmaier. Sinner, though, did go to a breaker against Kaboli, so maybe if Bublik serves well enough, he can force a breaker. That's really the only angle I have. I mean, Sinner's minus 1,100, so you're making an argument for Bublik to either keep it close or you think Sinner destroys the guy. It's a lot of games for 2 sets. I know the U.S. Open went poorly for Bublik, but he's in good form again. I'll go with the over on this one at 20.5. I think that you're looking at a realistic chance of getting maybe a 7-5 or 7-6 if Bublik's serve does, once again, keep looking sharp. I think that makes sense. I do think Bublik will end up losing because Sinner, I think, will win the event without dropping a set. I said that earlier in the week. But Bublik can definitely serve well enough to at least get some free points out of it. He can come to the net to try to shorten the points to take away Sinner's strength, which is consistency behind the baseline. I'll go with Bublik to keep this somewhat close. Give me the over 20.5 for this one. If you want the plus 4.5 games, you can get it available at around plus 112. I don't hate that. I don't see any value on Sinner. So I'll go for Bublik to hang in there, to not get embarrassed, but to still lose the match inevitably. Moving on to the final match on the card. This is the matchup that has pretty limited lines. You have Moutet taking on Musetti. Now, Musetti's minus 190. Moutet is around plus 150. For the path so far, Musetti's not dropped a set yet, beat Medjedovic and beat Echeverry. For Moutet, ended up beating Zoomer in straight sets, only lost 3 games, and he avenged his loss in the final in Almaty and beat Medvedev in straight sets. Now, for the matchup, face off one time in the past, it was on clay this season, and Musetti won in straight sets. Do I care? No. We know Musetti is a former bronze medalist in clay Olympics last year. We also know he made the French Open semis. He's a very, very good clay player, probably the third or fourth best clay player in the world. Not going to read too much into it. Now, Moutet and Musetti are not great servers, but Moutet does have variety. So with Musetti standing so far back with his return position, Moutet might use a bunch of drop shots. We know Musetti, though, has a lot of speed. He can get up to those. Should be a fun cat and mouse battle between the two of them. Now, the problem I have here is the pricing. Moutet's been very good. Made a final in Almaty. He beat Medvedev. He looks sharp so far in the event. So does Musetti. Medjedovic, though, fitness-wise, looks out of sorts right now. Echeverry, we know, is still not a great hardcourt player. I don't mind taking a shot at the dog here. I think that Moutet is getting disrespected at around plus 150. I don't mind the over 2.5 sets. I didn't see a line on it, but I do think you're looking at an opportunity for Moutet to maybe make it back to the semis. And Musetti, I know, made a final and lost to Bilo a couple weeks ago on hardcourt. Still don't think he's a great hardcourt player. He's improved in the area. We saw that in the U.S. Open. But I do think Moutet, with his current form, can still frustrate him, and I do think Moutet can do enough to maybe sneak his way over the finish line. For value, I don't see any on Musetti at minus 190. Give me Moutet as my choice here at around plus 150. Anyway, it's going to wrap it up for the preview of the quarters in Basel and Vienna. Time to move on into the lock and dog picks. Before we get into the lock and dog, reminder, brought to you by our sponsor, Arctic Fantasy. Great place to play fantasy pick'em. You win 500 times your entry, pick higher or lower on player stats, whether it involves basketball, hockey, baseball, tennis. You can pick whatever you want. You can mix and match if you want to. They have a new offer for customers as well. Play just $5. You can earn those funds. Use promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm, the crushing in college football and the NFL with picks and props, giving away a bunch of money in cash prizes every week just for tracking your bets in the app. Track 5 bets of the same type of model that you built. You can win $1K. And a reminder, we also have a nice discount code with Rhythm. Use code SGPN25 when you download the Rhythm app for quarter first month. Download them once again, promo code SGPN25 for quarter off your first month. Promo code SGPN25. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Scam Podcast. Finished going through the quarters in Basel and Vienna. Time to move on into the lock and dog picks. For the lock, is going to sound dangerous, but you know what? This line does feel too cheap. I think the Fonseca match against Shapo should be close either way, and I do think the wrong guy might be favored. Give me Shapo, team total over 12.5 at minus 120. Both guys have seen a ton of 7-5 or 7-6 sets recently, which bodes well for the over. So there's been a 7-5 or a 7-6 set in 6 of Fonseca's last 7 matches, not including the Mensik match, which was a walkover, of course. So a decent amount of long sets for Fonseca lately. Shapo not too far behind. There's been a 7-5 or 7-6 set in 4 of his last 5 matches. So based on the court speeds and based on the firepower both guys have, I expect a 7-5 or 7-6 at some point in the match. It could go 3. Line's basically a coin flip, couple ways to get there. But with a breaker expected, and with Shapo, who's played pretty well recently, and with Fonseca really having an up-and-down season and only playing 1 match here, I feel like Fonseca's being overvalued after beating Perricard. I just think that Shapo can win a set. I think he can keep it close, and I think he'll get at least 1 close set that gets to 12-plus games. Give me the Shapo team total over 12.5 at minus 120 as my lock. For my dog, I'm going to go back to the Humbert and Opelka match. You know what? I got to do it for the price. Give me the first set over 10.5 games at plus 112. Tiebreak in the match is minus 240. So, sure, I just think it's a good number. 6 of Opelka's last 9 matches have had at least 12 games in the first set. We saw that in the last match against Zanchulp, there were 0 breaks in the first 2 sets combined. Opelka, bombing serves, and with the court speed here, even if Humbert eventually breaks him, the fact is he's going to have to actually adjust to facing a server of this caliber. I know Fritz can serve well, too. First serve percentage, though, wasn't really great for Fritz in the match on Thursday. I'm just going to trust Opelka do what he does, which is probably lose to a better player, but at the same point, still serve well enough to hold serve 5 times in a row while not doing anything when it comes to actually breaking. So give me the, simply put, the obvious play, in my opinion. Fritz, though, only landed 47% of his first serves. So Humbert returned well. He got a bunch of looks at Fritz's second serve. So I think Opelka can do what he normally does, which is lose in a breaker and then onward. But the first set, I think, has some merit. You're going from a guy who barely hit any first serves to arguably the best server on the entire tour, on the fastest conditions in the entire season. I like the first set over for the games here at plus money. So once again, the lock and dog, the lock's going to be on Chapo. Team total over 12.5 at minus 120. For the dog, I'm going to go with the Humbert and Opelka match. First set over 10.5 games at plus 112. It's going to wrap it up for the show. We're back once again for the semis in Vienna and Basel. Until next time, find me on Twitter or Reichel Radio. Good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.